I've already done a video on frame popping in iColorama. That's where you have part of an image fall outside of a frame. But now I'm going to do it in Superimpose X. You can see here that I've got a sunflower that's coming right out of that picture, and the difference between doing it in Superimpose X and iColorama is that we can change the shape of the frame and not have it exactly rectangular. So let's go into Superimpose X. When it's brought up, it will toss you back into the gallery so that you can start a new project by hitting that big plus sign. We're going to hit big plus sign, and we're going to start with a background that I made in iColorama. And we're going to hit the check mark to accept that. The next thing we're going to do is to build the frame. And you do that by adding layers. Under Photo Layer, there's an option for colors. So you tap on that little palette and you're presented with some rectangles. I'm going to have a 5x4, and I'm going to want it to be basically a white, but not quite so white. I don't like it very white, so I'll pull it down some and make it a gray. And I accept that, and then I'll get this dialog, and I don't care about pixelated output or whatever, so I just dismiss it. Next, I'll add the interior of the frame, or the black in this case is what I'm going to be using. And so another 5x4, except it's going to be black this time. I accept that, dismiss the dialog. Now I'm going to squeeze that black square. I'm going to go to Transform and squeeze the black square down, and then make it uniform all the way around. So now that I've got my frame with the interior, I want to make that a single thing. So I will merge the black down into the gray. Tap on Layers, tap on the black layer, and tap Merge Down. Now I'm able to transform this particular layer, distort it, and you do that in the editor. So I go to Editor, Distort, Transform, and I start pulling these upper corners down and in. And as I do that, I'll want to make sure that, let's pull this down even farther here. And I'm going to want to make sure that the top edge is parallel to the upper edge of the image, so that it's a uniform slope. I want the bottom edges to be pulled out even farther, so I do that. Once I accept this with the check mark at the upper right, then I'm going to want to save off this frame. You don't need to be doing this frame every single time. You want to be able to reuse this frame. So I go to Current Layer Image and save that. Not the entire image, but the current layer. And it saves it with the transparent background, which means it's reusable later on. It takes a while for it to do this. I've hit the Transform button because I want to place the frame where I want it, but it doesn't really register yet. There, finally it is registered, and I can now resize and move that to where I want it to be. Once I have it where I want it to be, I go back to the Layers menu, and I do Cast Shadow because I want a shadow on it. I pull the shadow down and to the right, and I like more blur and less opacity. So there I've increased the blur, and then I decrease the opacity. When I've got that right, I want it to be merged into the background. So I'll go back to my layers and then tap on the layer and merge it down because I don't need to move it anymore. Now I can bring in the image for frame popping. I'm going to bring in the sunflower image. And I accept it with the check mark. And then I'm going to use the blend option under Layers to lower the opacity just temporarily so that I can place this image where I want it to be and resize it so that I can see parts of it go over the edge, parts of it do not. This particular image was taken in the presence of Mary Walker, the iPhone art girl. If you haven't seen her stuff, you need to go out and take a look at it. Okay, so once I've got it placed, then I will want to go back to Layers, Blend, and increase the opacity to 100%. I'm going to want to duplicate this layer because one's going to go underneath that will show up within the frame, and then the other will show up on top and it's going to be outside the frame. So I drag one layer down below, and then I take the top layer and I'm going to hide it. Now I can mask that center layer. Go to mask and I use the magic wand and I tap in the black, and then you can see there is everything that shows up inside the frame. So now I can work with what goes outside the frame. I go back to my layers option at the top, pick my top layer, show the layer, and now I can start masking. I go back to mask and I choose the magic wand again, and then I can tap in the blue sky and you can see it gets rid of that. I can zoom in and tap around and take those little blue areas and get rid of them. So then I'm starting to look around, see if there's anything else that, yes, there is one little piece of right here in the center, right under the bloom, that has that blue that we want to get rid of. Next I'll use the standard brush to do some heavy-duty taking out of large areas. And I'll start on the lower right, and right under that leaf there, we're going to clear out. And it doesn't matter if we overlap into that portion that falls inside the frame, because we can see that from the bottom layer. As you get close to the bloom, you're going to want to use the magic brush to allow you to take out right up next to the edge with not much problem. I'm also going to do that down here next to the leaf. The magic brush recognizes the colors that are underneath the brush and will not erase those pixels that are a different color. So you can see here, even though it overlaps the edge of the leaf, it just gets rid of the darker color that surrounds that leaf. And I can do underneath as well. Now I'm looking around for other things that I may want to have overlap the frame. In other cases I might go for the stem to overlap the frame, but in this case I don't think I'm going to. So I'll switch back to my standard brush, and I'll start taking out everything that falls outside the frame down here at the bottom. I take that out. And now I'll come back in here and use that same standard brush. I want to take off a little more than the magic brush would take off. And I also want to curve the top of this to make it not look like it is the end of the edge of the picture, the original image. It looks like it's a leaf that's curved. I'll do the same thing over here on the right. In this case I'm using the magic brush because I haven't gotten rid of all that blue correctly. And then I'll use the standard brush to curve the edge of the leaf here so that I don't have a square end of it. This is pretty much good. I might try to, at this point, shrink the mask a little bit to get rid of those edges. Yeah, that's probably pretty good right there. And that pretty much does it. Now you can go back to your layers and choose the light wrap option. It sort of clears up the edges for you and sort of makes them blend into the background a little more. And so you'll see here a couple of times I go back and forth comparing having it on and having it off. I finally decide on this particular image to leave it off. And then I'll do a little more clearing up of the tree that falls outside the frame. So what we're doing here is establishing 3 layers. One is the frame and the background. One is the image that falls within the frame, and that goes behind that image. It's the bottom layer. And then the third image is a duplicate of that same image, and that's going to be the portion that falls outside the frame. If when you're clearing this up you tap a wrong thing, you can always use the undo button, zoom in, and get this a little more cleared up. And there you have it, my final image. Until next time, enjoy.